on this Monday, August 31st, 2020. This conference is presented by the Cherokee Nation Community and Cultural Outreach. We're just beginning to start a little bit after 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and the conference will conclude at 4 p.m. today. On behalf of the Conference Planning Committee, the tribal leadership at Cherokee Nation, technical support, and each and every one of you, we want to welcome you to today's conference. My name is Mark Wilson, and I'm a tribal citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I grew up in the Chalk Bluff, Piney communities located in Stillwell, Oklahoma. My parents are my late dad, Andrew J. Wilson, and my 90-year-old mother, Lucille Forkiller Wilson. Today, my wife and I reside in the Prattville, Tulsa, Oklahoma area. We have 5 children and 2 grandchildren. Matter of fact, my oldest daughter, Chelsea, will be presenting later on during today's conference, and my niece, Savannah, works for Cco. So you can say this is a family affair. Gadugi, people coming together as one and working to help one another. This is one of our core Cherokee community values. I mentioned my family, and I look forward to seeing other members on this panel throughout the day who also have families. And normally this time of year, a lot of us would make our way to Tahlequah, Oklahoma for our Cherokee National Holiday Homecoming festivities. This year, this is the first virtual conference for Cco, and we hope you have a great experience with it. We ask you to have patience with us, as this is a new experience for all of us. Family is important. Our children, our grandchildren, and the work that the Cherokee Nation Community and Cultural Outreach do on a daily basis, like hosting this conference, speaks volumes to the commitment Cherokee Nation has to family. Before we begin, we'd like to open up with a prayer. And in my prayer this morning, conference participants, we will remember our families who have suffered loss, especially during this time of pandemic, COVID-19. We'll also remember our servicemen and servicewomen, our veterans and their families who proudly serve our country, the stars and stripes, the red, white, and blue. We'll also be reminded of our leadership within our own nation and other tribal nations across Indian country. We also will remember our elders, who we learn from so much each and every day, and the prayers that they offer up on a daily basis for their children and grandchildren. And our young people, especially our kids, who right now, many of them are going back to school, maybe meeting in the classroom, or like we're doing today, virtually, as well as our students who are in college. And last but not least, we will also remember each and every one of you, our conference participants, our speakers, and all of our Indian people that stretch all across Indian country. At the closing of our prayer this morning, I will offer up a prayer song. Creator, we come to you this morning thanking you for another beautiful day that is ours to enjoy. We are grateful for the morning sun that greeted us to the east. Grateful for the sounds of the animals that we heard. All of your creation was at our foot. And Creator, once again, we want to say, Wado, for the opportunity to come together as Indian people, professionals from very different fields, to learn and to grow and to support one another. We ask a special blessing this morning on our family members who are suffering loss of a loved one. We ask that you comfort them, that they are able to find solace during this time of mourning and grief. Know that they're being uplifted by their family and friends this morning. We thank you for our servicemen and servicewomen who have honored their country, their family, by protecting our rights, our liberty, and our freedom. And we ask a special prayer this morning for their families that are here in the homes, in their communities, while their sons and daughters serve the Stars and Stripes. We are thankful and grateful for the leadership that we see on a daily basis by our tribal leaders here within Cherokee Nation and other tribes all across Indian country. We ask that they lead with sincere vision and compassion and hope that tomorrow will be a better day for all of our Indian people. We ask a special blessing this morning for our elders, those that know the language, that speak the language, that know the songs. May you be with them this morning. If they are feeling a little lonely, that you put your hand on them and that they know that their sons and daughters are thinking of them. We ask that you be with our young people, our little ones, our children. Many are on their way to school. They're in the classroom. They're at a computer this morning. So we just thank you for their life. And we ask that we as parents and grandparents continue to be good role models for our children. And a prayer for our kids that are in college as they learn, as they're around other young people, that they be safe and out of harm's way. And Creator, we ask a special blessing on all the participants that are zooming in right now, wherever they are, to the north, to the east, to the south, to the west, or right here in Oklahoma. We ask that you give them a good day today, that you open their minds and hearts to receive. Hey yo yo, hey yo yo, hey yo hey yo, hey yo 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 hey hey. Hey yo yo, hey yo yo, hey yo yo, hey yo yo yo, hey yo hey yo, hey yo hey yo, hey yo hey yo, Hey yo yo, hey yo yo, hey yo yo, hey yo yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey. Amen. Now this morning we're in for a special treat. I'm honored to introduce the Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Mr. Chuck Hoskin, Jr. And Principal Chief is not only a friend to me, but a friend to many of you. And you've seen his work when he was formerly Secretary of State for our nation. He's been in office for just over a year. He's assembled a great team. He has a great spirit, a great heart. His hometown, Bonita, Oklahoma, I know very proud of our chief, as we all are. So without further ado, a welcome from Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin, Jr.
Osio, it's my honor as Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation to welcome you to the 2020 Virtual Community and Cultural Outreach Conference. This is a first for Cherokee Nation, but we're committed to the mission of our CCO department and the community organizations that it serves. Hosting a completely online event is directly related to the global pandemic and our desire to keep our citizens safe and healthy. However, the business of Cherokee Nation must continue, and your work is vital. This year, the annual homecoming we host with our valued CCO organizations is a bit different. But what is most important is that you are still reconnecting with Cherokee Nation, our sovereign government, and our unique culture. Friends, we are all Cherokee people, whether we live inside the reservation here in Northeast Oklahoma or outside of it, and that is a bond that can never be broken. Over the past year, we've made critical investments in language preservation, and that is something I know people all over the world are excited about. Our new and recently announced language department is producing more materials and creating more programs to ensure the Cherokee language not only endures, but thrives. Now, we're losing elder traditional speakers at an alarming rate, but we're teaching a new generation of Cherokees to speak and read our beautiful language. That's something we can all be proud of now, and it's something we'll be proud of for generations to come. The federal financial relief in the CARES Act is allowing us to reinvest into the tribal organizations that keep Cherokee Nation strong and vibrant. Now, within the reservation, we're helping CCO organizations expand and improve their buildings and enhance the offerings they provide to their local communities, such as the regular distribution of healthy and nutritious food. It's allowing us to invest in critical personal protective equipment, not just here in Northeast Oklahoma, but for all of our at-large communities. And we're helping first responders stay equipped with PPE so they can keep everyone safe. We're utilizing those dollars to invest in education grants that will help with technology needs and other distance learning obstacles. Through our education department, we have opportunities for Cherokee students who live both on the reservation and at large. I encourage you to visit our website and learn more about strategically reinvesting our CARES Act funding to the Respond, Recover, and Rebuild plan here at the Cherokee Nation. We've also made an historic win in the United States Supreme Court. In the McGirt case, the court ruled that our reservation was never disestablished. And more recently, a federal judge sided with Oklahoma tribes on our gaming compact, making it clear that this compact automatically renewed January 1st, 2020. Even though we're not able to gather in person, I want you to know that you remain in my heart and on my mind. There have been many challenges since we last gathered, but here in the Cherokee Nation, our sovereign right to self-govern is stronger than ever. Our people are resilient and know how to push through adversity. We're at a point in history where we need to unify and work hard to secure our nation's future. We also need hope. Put simply, the work that Cherokee community organizers do day in and day out, here on the reservation and at large, does all of this. You work hard, your work brings us unity, and through that we find inspiration and we find hope. Together, we are moving Cherokee Nation forward. Through our shared values of community, family, and culture, We know the future is bright for our great nation. Waddell.
Thank you for that welcome, Chief Hoskin Jr. Such wonderful words of compassion and wisdom. And we especially thank the leadership of Cherokee Nation for all that they're doing to protect our people during this pandemic. Next, I'm honored to introduce another good friend of mine. I've gotten to know our Deputy Chief over the last couple of years. First met him when he served on our council, but the one thing about Deputy Chief Warner is that he is a friend to all. His hometown is Sallisaw, Oklahoma. He's very proud of that, has a beautiful family. And both Principal Chief and Deputy Chief are committed to family, especially our elders. They have made the commitment, they've gone the extra mile to serve food, to make sure they're provided for, that they have shelter, that our kids have funding to go to college, and many, many other things that they do. And we're just honored to have Deputy Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Bryan Warner, to speak to you now.
Cco, and welcome to the 2020 annual Cherokee Nation Community and Cultural Outreach Conference of Community Leaders. I know this is not how we usually host Cherokee Nation events, but we're all living in a world that requires social distancing to help keep us all safe, especially our Cherokee elders, who are among the most vulnerable to the ongoing pandemic. Visiting with you all face-to-face is one of my greatest joys as Deputy Chief, and sadly, we won't be able to do this year. However, as Cherokees, we remain resourceful and flexible, so we were all still able to host an online version of our CCO conference. I believe you'll find the presentations and discussions invigorating. When we share our best practices, we all find that those are both motivating and helpful. I know they are for me, and I promise you will see and hear ideas that you will be able to use in your own home community. CCO plays a vital role in keeping us all connected, filling an invaluable role for Cherokees across the nation. Our team has created online programming, trainings, and other valuable resources to help strengthen Cherokee organizations. The strength of the Cherokee Nation is reflected in each and every day in our tribal citizens, our culture, and our communities. Together, Chief Hoskin and I, along with the Tribal Council, endeavor to ensure that our tribe, our government, and our culture is stronger than ever. What we have accomplished over the past year, even in the midst of a global pandemic, has been amazing. Whether it was raising the tribe's minimum wage, making historic investments in language preservations, refocusing our efforts on home improvements for elders, or advancing career readiness opportunities for Cherokees of all ages, our administration make a difference for the next 7 generations as we honor our history and our ancestors. Your presence here at this virtual conference is a reassuring reminder that Cherokee citizens are passionate about their heritage and their tribe. You are all willing to sacrifice, put in the work, and show up to make a positive difference in your own communities and throughout the Cherokee Nation. That's how I feel every day working for the Cherokee people. It's my profound honor to serve as your Deputy Chief, and I want to welcome you today. Waddell.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Warner. Again, we say Waddell to our Principal Chief and Deputy Chief for those words from the heart, both doing an outstanding job as well as the members of our Tribal Council. This is the 16th annual Conference of Community Leaders. First conference being held virtual. And in the past, they've had over 500 people congregate and attend this conference. They've gone back and forth between host sites in Tahlequah and Tulsa, and this year, virtual. So we thank all the leadership team for community and cultural outreach for putting this together. Hasn't been easy, but they've surrounded themselves with quality, dedicated professionals to ensure that this conference today is one that we will always remember. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the director for Community and Cultural Outreach at Cherokee Nation, Mr. Kevin Stretch. Kevin, turning it over to you, buddy.
Wadon Mark, Sionagad, Kevin Stretch, Dawadan, Jalilega, Jigadoha. We're proud to host the conference, the first virtual conference. As with any conference, we will want each of you to silence your mobile phones. So I'll wait while you all do that. Anyway, how many of you, this is your first video conference? Raise your hand. Oh, I see quite a few of you. That's great. So seriously though, this time a year ago, if I'd never heard of Zoom, or I'd have definitely bought stock. And who would have thought you could attend a prestigious conference like ours in your pajamas? Yes, Mark, I see your Pokemon PJ bottoms. Nice touch with a Pikachu slippers. A year ago, I didn't even know I didn't know what a virtual background was, and now look at this. Unlike every CCO conference in the past, we have not had to take one single attendee to the emergency room yet. How cool is that, huh? None of us has to endure the hot, sticky, sweaty Oklahoma weather. Whether you can enjoy the presentations from the comfort of your home, or while social distanced from a beach or a mountaintop, or if you're Donnie Squirrel from a Kenwood Creek. This has truly been an extraordinary year. If 2020 were an Indian taco, it would be comprised of delicious fry bread topped with mustard, tofu, and spaghetti. It's been a rough year, I tell you, no respect. I, for one, have gained weight during this sequestering time period. I like to call it my COVID-19. Anyway, seriously though, this year, the pandemic has provided you, the Cherokee community organizations, the great opportunity to extend the work you do and the people you reach with historic funding through Cherokee Nation's Respond, Relief, and Recover grants. $2.7 million were allocated just for CCO participating community organizations. Whether you are in res or at large, your organization has funding available, allowing you to help those in need, those struggling during this pandemic, just to keep food on their table. Many of your organizations have received the funding already, and many more have applied and will be receiving your funds in the very near future. We strongly encourage those organizations who have yet to apply to search your hearts, step up to help your communities and your elders, those in need. This is what great orgs do. And this is an extraordinary time to follow the values laid out by our ancestors, to help one another, to look after one another, to hold each other tightly and dearly, and to work together for the common good. Now, speaking of these grants, commonly referred to as the RRR grant, they are allocated from federal dollars. So like no time before, it is vital that your organization do the following. Follow the criteria which you proposed in your application summary. The feds have given the Indian country very strict requirements for spending these grant dollars. Complete all work and services used using these dollars by December the 15th, or else you will be responsible for returning the unused, unreported money back to the Cherokee Nation, who in turn will be required to return it to the federal government. Turn in your receipts by December the 15th. This is what assures the federal auditors we have spent the money following their strict guidelines. And we've been assured by Cherokee Nation Treasurer that Cherokee Nation will be audited. If you are handing out food certificates or vouchers, each person receiving them are required to fill out a simple one-page document stating that they are affected by the pandemic. This will be Cherokee Nation's verification provided to the federal auditors. Inside reservations or organizations, see Brad, Vince, or Savannah for a copy, and at large, call me or email Lindy Conover if you haven't received it already. When you apply, You swore to follow these guidelines, and the federal government requires it. And therefore, we will insistently seek out receipts and the return of unused funds. It's very important. The application that we have received thus far are impressive. Most of the 40 CCO participating communities with buildings in cooperation with the Cherokee Nation are providing some sort of food distribution to help alleviate food insecurities and distribute personal protective equipment or PPE to the organizations in order to maintain sanitary and safe conditions. The grant provides capital money to upgrade infrastructure needs in order to respond to this and future emergencies. Non-building organizations have been provided operational funding to allow food and sanitization safeties for their communities. That being said, the Cherokee Nation strongly discourages your organizations to not hold any gatherings at your facility, even outside. We will be diligent for a proper period of time to stop the spread of this virus. Your organization has recently received an email from me stating that we take this very serious. Oklahoma especially still has a high trend of active virus cases. I assure you the Cherokee Nation public health officials are in close contact with state and federal officials, and we want to strictly adhere to their recommendations. Trust me, we will let you know when we are told it is safe so that you may open your buildings. I want to remind those of you, your Cherokee citizens 62 and over, to apply for the elderly relief funding. Each applicant, regardless of geographic location, will receive $400, regardless of economic need. There's also a grant to provide living assistance based on income. To apply, go to cherokee.org and click on the COVID-19 grants below. You'll see the purple background with the R logo. The deadline has been extended to September the 11th. Additionally, pre-COVID, Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. announced two amazing pieces of legislation: the Housing, Jobs, and Sustainable Communities Act and the Durbin Feeling Language Preservation Act. CCO has provided $7.5 million of C&B funds to oversee capital improvements, including green technologies and more energy efficiency among the community buildings. Of course, COVID-19 hit right smack in the middle of that. So those projects are just getting to break ground. This is a 3-year program. Along with R funding, we will see more robust community buildings with a smoother connection to the Cherokee Nation emergency operations, as well as providing each community a safe, healthy, and caring place together. Shortly after he took office, Chief Hoskin introduced the $16 million Durbin Feeling Language Preservation Act in order to do just that, preserve our language, the keystone of our culture. I hope each of you spend some time each day or during the week learning at least some of the language of your ancestors. You know, only a few generations ago, we were all first language speakers. Durbin Feeling Chigesa, whom the Historic Act was named, very recently traveled on, but the legacy of language warriors of diligence and tenacity lives on. Wado Durbin. Now, Udawadies, or Howard Payton, and the Cherokee Language Master Apprentice Program has been absorbed into the new Cherokee Language Department with Mr. Payton as the Executive Director. So, although they are no longer part of CCO, we will continue to help each other to not only preserve Cherokee, but to perpetuate it. As long as I'm director, language will always be a part of the CCO conference. Every year, CCO has gathered together experts, scholars, cultural and language specialists, and this year is no exception. In fact, this year, we have the highest number of Cherokee citizen presenters of any of our conferences. Our tribe, some 380,000 strong, have a vast number of such experts, most unseen, who work in their own way to make Cherokee citizens proud. Virtual conference. Who would have imagined this time last year that our lives would be changed forever? The COVID-19 pandemic has touched everyone at every corner of the globe. How we conduct ourselves, if we wear a mask, if we wash our hands thoroughly, if we maintain social distance, if we stay at home, that collectively protects us, our families, and our society. So be responsible, be respectful, be mindful, so we can not only flatten the curve, but also beat this virus. By doing so, we are buying time, time for global scientists to find a cure, a vaccine. So steel yourself for doing what's right. This is a virtual gathering. That's what Cherokees do, we gather. That's what makes this year so much more difficult. We at CCO love our conferences, not just for the expert presentations, but also that feeling of connectedness, hugging, laughing, sharing food and stories, hero to hero, and you are all heroes in your community. For now, however, this will have to do. We will have to wait. But if we all follow the guidelines, we will be together again soon. The hardworking CCO staff wish you a long and healthy life, and more immediately, a great conference experience. Wado.
Thank you, Kevin. Good words and an outstanding job that you do leading community and cultural outreach on behalf of Cherokee Nation. And we know that this today's virtual conference is going to go outstanding. And we wish you and your staff all the best moving forward. The communities that you serve are better off today for the work that you and your staff do. So Wado. Next, conference participants, I have the great honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Ms. Cynthia Ruiz. Had the chance to meet her briefly this morning, and her bio is outstanding. Cynthia is a professor, executive coach, best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and leadership expert. She's received over 50 accolades and awards for her leadership and service to our community. She currently serves as commission president for LACERS, which stands for Los Angeles City Employee Retirement System, overseeing a multi-billion-dollar pension portfolio. Coming from blended cultures of Latina and Native American, Mexican, and Cherokee, she enjoys a passion for life and a profound appreciation for Mother Earth. As a professor, she received the President's Award from the University of West Los Angeles for her work as an outstanding professor. She teaches leadership at both the graduate and undergraduate level in the School of Business. She has over 20 years of experience teaching and public speaking. Cynthia is the author of 3 books, Cherokee Wisdom, 12 Lessons for Becoming a Powerful Leader, Finding Sane Relationships in a Crazy World, and Yo También, Stories of Healing and Hope. She appeared in Discovering the Gift, a movie/book with such notables as is Holiness, the Dalai Lama, Michael Bernard Beckwith, Jack Canfield, and many, many more. In 2019, she received the Community Leader of the Year Award from Cherokee Nation. Lifestyle named her a 2018 Latina of Influence. She has received the prestigious Hollywood Chamber Women of Distinction Award, the Hope, Ray of Hope Award, and the Weingart Women Building LA Award. Twice the California Apparel News has listed her on their renowned list of influential people, and LA Weekly showcased her in their People edition. Her career has placed her in many leadership roles, including president of the boards of public works for the city of Los Angeles, where she had direct oversight of 5,000 employees and just under $1 billion per year budget. She has worked as an executive at the #1 container port in the U.S. and successfully runs her own business. Today, her focus is developing other leaders through her thriving executive coaching business, where she helps transform some of LA's top executives into powerful leaders. She has developed 7 steps for team success, along with many other management tools to help manage a team. Her business model includes pro bono coaching clients as a way of investing in our future generation. She holds a Master's of Science degree in counseling from California State University, Los Angeles, and has completed a leadership course at Harvard University, John F. Kennedy School of Government. She's been a trailblazer throughout her career, as she has been the first person in her family to attend college and the first Latina Native American to be president of both Lacers Board and Board of Public Works for the city of Los Angeles. Our keynote speaker knows the importance of giving back and always strives to stay humble. She has a passion for women empowerment and started the Wise Latina Network and is a co-founder of the Yo También Healing Movement. Cynthia is a registered citizen in the Cherokee Nation and is a council member of the Los Angeles Cherokee Nation affiliate. Her Cherokee name is Lion Mother, which she strives to live up to each and every day. Participants, our keynote speaker, Ms. Cynthia Ruiz.
Thank you, Mark, for that very wonderful introduction. Cco, my name is Cynthia, and as Mark told you, my Cherokee name is Lion Mother. I start everything that I do with gratitude. First and foremost, I want to express gratitude for all of the amazing Cherokee Nation employees that put this conference together. It's no easy feat. I also want to express gratitude to all the strong Cherokee women in my family who have paved the way for me to be here today. I humbly and respectfully stand on their shoulders. My grandmother, who was born in Cherokee territory in 1896, my amazing aunts, and my fearless mother. My mother served as the County of Los Angeles liaison to the Native American community for 25 years. She also served as a commissioner for the City County Native American Indian Commission for over 20 years. In 1999, she was a delegate to the historic Cherokee Nation Convention, which laid the foundation for our Constitution. I have learned by their example to work hard, to serve the community, and never give up. I want to also acknowledge our ancestors. We come from a strong people that persevered and never gave up despite the many challenges they endured. Now, today we come together as community leaders from all over the United States. Now, we may be gathering virtually, however, we're still connected. Now, we may look different. We may live in different parts of the country. And yes, we even may have different opinions. But you know what? That is okay. That's okay, because what we have in common is stronger than our differences. Let me say that again. What we have in common is stronger than our differences. What we all have in common is we have Cherokee blood running through our veins. And where does our blood go? It goes to our heart. So we each have a Cherokee heart and a strong spirit. So as we participate in this conference today, I ask you to tap into that heart energy and come together as one to make our community stronger. Kituwa elder Crosland Field Smith, in his book entitled Stand as One, reminds us that we are all connected, not only to each other, but everything that's ever been and everything that ever will be. A fundamental Cherokee principle is to be one with all creation before, now, and tomorrow. We're also taught to live in harmony and balance. I believe that we are each a thread in a big blanket. We are a community made up of 380,000 tribal citizens. As a sovereign nation, the future of our people is in our collective hands. My dream is that we come together as one people and work together for the greater good of our community. I ask that you join me. August marks the 25th anniversary of when Principal Chief Wilma Mankiller left office. As we know, she served in office as our Principal Chief from 1985 until 1995. She reminded us that when leaders are making decisions, they are to remember 7 generations in the past and 7 generations in the future. We all have a responsibility to both our ancestors and future generations. Our children, our grandchildren, and their children are all depending on us. So we all need to step up and help the Cherokee community thrive. Women have always played an important role in our community, and today is no different. Women, I ask you to join me to step up and be servant leaders. Now, as women, what we bring to the table is compassion. The men bring strength. And when you put those together, compassion and strength, we are unstoppable. I'm here today to tell you that you are a leader. Yes, you are a leader, and leadership matters. Last year, we elected Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr., who you heard from earlier. He, in my opinion, is intelligent, dedicated, and committed to helping the people, Cherokee people, grow stronger and go further than we ever have been before. We also have 17 amazing tribal council members who are all servant leaders. But our elected leaders cannot do it alone. It is up to all of us to step up, be servant leaders, and do our individual part, no matter how big or small, to help our community thrive. Now, this does not mean that we have to agree on everything, but the Cherokee way is to talk it out, work it out, and come together. We need to put our individual egos aside and come together for the greater good of our community. That is what servant leadership is all about. It's not about individuals being right or wrong. It's about investing in our future, and so we can make sure that future generations thrive. So my message today is simple. First, number one, we are one people. Number two, we can all do our part to help our community thrive. And number three, we do have a responsibility to future generations. So let me answer the question, what is leadership? Well, leadership, there's been over 15,000 books written on leadership, so there is not one right answer. As a leadership professor, I believe that if you break it down into its simplest terms, leadership is the ability to influence others. Let me say that again. Leadership is the ability to influence others. And when you think about it, we all influence others. Now, if you are a parent, you influence others. If you have siblings, you influence others. If you're a grandparent, you influence others. If you're a community member, you influence others. If you're a Cherokee Nation employee, you influence others. We all influence others, so that makes us all leaders. Now, when you influence others, influence can be negative or positive. It can really go either way. So it's up to us to make sure when we're influencing others in our community, it's done in a positive way, and we're coming together for the benefit for our community. Now, the theme of this conference is servant leadership, so I want to talk about that particular style of leadership. The term servant leader was coined in 1970, which when you think about how long people have been around, it's not really that long ago. However, we all know that servant leadership has been around a lot longer than that. I believe it goes hand in hand as who we are as a people. Servant leadership is a leadership philosophy in which the main goal of the leader is to serve. A servant leader makes the community a priority. Instead of the people working to serve the leader, which was what happens in many cases, the leader exists to serve the people. I learned about servant leadership from watching the amazing women in my family because they were always helping others. I believe that leadership is in our blood. Look back at our history. Wilma Mankiller, she was a servant leader. John Ross, who led the Cherokee people for over 40 years, was looking out for the greater good of the community at one of the most difficult times in our history. And you too can be a servant leader, and most of you already are. Being involved in your local councils is serving the community. As Mark mentioned, I have the honor of serving on the local council in Los Angeles, and I have to say that as an at-large citizen, sometimes it's difficult. You know, we don't always feel connected because we don't live in Oklahoma, but it's up to us to stay connected. And for those of you that live in Cherokee Nation, it's up to you to help us feel welcome because we are one family. So what can you do to become a better servant leader and strengthen your local councils? Well, first, collaborate. Collaborate because we are stronger together. Collaborate not only with the people in your council, but other councils as well. I think a great example of collaboration was seen recently with the Mount Hood Cherokees. Now they live up in Oregon and Washington, and they stepped up and helped another Native community. They held a fundraising drive for members of the Yukoma Nation, which was left without clean water during this pandemic. They created a GoFundMe page, and they provided supplies and drinking water to people that were left without water because of aging infrastructure. Now, I'm happy to say that they have raised over $18,000 from the help of many people, including other Cherokee councils. I want to say that Mount Hood Cherokees, you are an excellent example of servant leadership. I like to say it takes teamwork to make the dream work. The second way that you could step up and be a servant leader in your local councils is to be honest. The truth is always revealed sooner or later. Now, I have to admit that not everybody wants to hear the truth, but by speaking the truth, it helps us develop a path forward. Next, act with integrity. And for those of you that are unsure what I mean by acting with integrity is doing the right thing, even if no one else is looking. Fourth, be respectful. We each have the right to our individual opinion, and we are each walking our own journey. Nobody's opinion is more important than the next, and no one person is important than the next. You know, you can acknowledge someone else's opinion without having to agree with them. Sometimes you just have to agree to disagree. Next, establish ground rules for your group. Ground rules to how you're going to resolve any differences that come up. And we all know from our family experiences that differences are gonna come up. Differences are a part of life. So establishing those ground rules and how to resolve conflict ahead of time before it even happens is so important. Finally, communicate, and communicate some more. And there are many ways to communicate. For me personally, I enjoy communicating in person. But you can call people, you can email them, you can text message them, you can communicate on social media. And yes, some people still rely on the good old US mail. Today, however, we are forced to communicate virtually, which is new for many people. In Los Angeles, we kicked off this year with a drumming circle. The drumming circle was powerful and it brought a lot of people out. However, since then, we have been forced to communicate virtually. Now, I must admit, this is a new way of doing things and not everybody's comfortable with it. But if we don't change with the times, we are going to get left behind. And nobody wants to get left behind, right? As we start this conference, I am here to say that servant leadership starts with you as an individual. Yes, it starts with you. And it doesn't matter your starting point. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter your age. And it doesn't even matter your educational level. You can start today and make a commitment to be a servant leader. So you may be asking yourself, How do I do this? How do I become a servant leader? Well, first, do your part to help our Cherokee community thrive. Support cultural events. Now, speaking of cultural events, I have to say one of my favorite cultural events is playing stickball. Last year, we had a representative from Cherokee Nation come out to Los Angeles, and he brought all the equipment and brought the rules. Well, speaking of rules, one of the reasons why I like stickball so much is because there were no rules for the women. And I'm happy to say that the women's team won. I'm sure the men are going to be asking for a rematch. Take a Cherokee history course. I had the opportunity of taking a Cherokee history class a few years ago, offered at UCLA. It was brought to us by the Cherokee Pins Project, which is led by Tribal Council Representative Julia Coates. And I have to say that that class was amazing. I learned so much. I think each and every single Cherokee citizen should take a Cherokee history class, as well as every single Cherokee Nation employee. It's so important because for me, I did not learn that information in school, so I was so grateful to be able to have this knowledge. By taking that history class, it gave me context and perspective. For us as a community, by looking in the past, it can help us pave the way for the future. And speaking of the future, mentor, 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 mentor. If we want our young people to thrive, we need to invest in them. Invest in them. Share your wisdom. Share your experiences and share your stories. They all have value. Next, be there for others with your time. Time is so precious. And in life, everyone is going to go through ups and downs. It's just part of the human experience. So share your time with others when they're going through tough times, when their loved ones walk on, when they're having problems, or maybe they just need someone to listen to them. Share your time because you never know when you are going to need their support. Share your resources and information. Share the resources from Cherokee Nation. Cherokee Nation has some amazing programs. We have scholarships. We have programs for our elders and great health care. Did you know, speaking of health care, that we are going to graduate our first class of Cherokee doctors in May of 2024? That is so impressive, and it makes me so proud. Do your part to keep our traditions alive. Listen to the storytellers, take a language class, and yes, spend time with our elders. So when I started, I asked you to join me. I asked you to join me to become one people. I asked you to join me to do your part to help the Cherokee community thrive. And I ask you to join me to take responsibility to invest in future generations. Now, I ask that you join me to step up and become a servant leader for the benefit of our people. So, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you're willing to step up and join me to be a servant leader. Now, you can virtually raise your hand. If you go to participants and click that, you'll see a button to raise your hand. However, you can always just simply raise your hand. Now, if you're ready to join me to step up and be a servant leader for our community, I'm going to ask you to confirm it with me. So I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. So I want you to get ready, sit up tall, be proud, and in your most convincing voice, I'm going to ask you to please repeat after me. Ready? I am a servant leader. Okay, we can do better than that. I didn't hear everyone. Let's try that again. I am a servant leader. That was much better. We are all servant leaders. We are supported by our ancestors. We are one people. We are one people. I appreciate you listening. My name is Cynthia, aka Lion Mother. I am a proud Cherokee woman, and I am a servant leader. Wado.
Wado, Cynthia, wherever we are, at our home or at our office desk, let's give her a big round of applause, please. That was outstanding. Thank you, Cynthia Ruiz. I know I raised my hand. Did you? And I repeated some things that I want to share briefly about her message of positivity. And thank you again, Cynthia, for those wonderful words, comments from the heart. You could feel it through the screen. She starts each day with gratitude. And that's something that I personally do each and every morning when I wake up. Also, Cynthia, is to begin the day with gratitude, a prayer, either verbally or in song. Take a deep breath and breathe and be thankful. Have gratitude for the day. I took from her comments that she is a very valuable Cherokee community member, not only on the West Coast in her hometown of Los Angeles, but what she talked about really represents what this conference really means, and that's covering the whole gamut of Cherokee community values. I mentioned earlier on in our opening about the Gadugi, where we come together for the benefit of all, and what she expressed this morning in her keynote really laid the foundation, I believe, for this conference. So thank you, Cynthia. Talked about becoming a servant leader, embracing change, and we're doing that today via Zoom. So, and I like the fact that she meant talk about take a history course. You know, I grew up here in Chalk Bluff in the Piney community, went to Marietta schools and Stillwell, but we all can learn our history and especially our language, and mentorship. How valuable is being a mentor in today's society? So many of our young people are learning virtually. They're away from the classroom, they're away from their family, their friends and teachers. So now, especially today, it's so important to become a mentor to those that need it. And we all have mentors. I have mentors in my profession. I look up to people. So thank you once again, Ms. Cynthia Ruiz, our keynote speaker. She did a fabulous, outstanding job. Next, it is my great honor to introduce the Cherokee Nation Grant Services Director to share some information, important information about her office and her role within Cherokee Nation, Ms. Tanya Johnson. Tanya.
Thank you, Mark. Again, my name is Tanya Johnson, and I'm the Director of Grant Services for Cherokee Nation. I come to you today from Tahlequah, Oklahoma, where I was born and raised. As Mark said, as the Director for Financial Resources for Grant Services, I work in the financial resources at the tribe. And I just want to say that I appreciate everyone who has joined us today. As servant leaders, your organizations provide necessary services for our Cherokee communities, and your work is very important to our tribe and citizens. I know you join us from around the U.S. today, and as a response to the necessity to social distance because of coronavirus, that brings me to my topic today. Today, I want to speak to those organizations that Kevin mentioned earlier, who are applicants and recipients of CN's CCO COVID-19 response grants. And I want to talk to you about sub-recipient compliance. The COVID-19 response grants come to you from Cherokee Nation as part of the Coronavirus Relief Fund that was given to Cherokee, or that was provided to Cherokee Nation from the federal government. In order to assist at-large Cherokee communities in the response to and mitigation of the COVID-19 public health emergency, it shall be the policy of Cherokee Nation to provide economic support via the at-large community organization COVID-19 response grant subprogram to eligible CCO organizations to provide funding for necessary expenditures to respond to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Previously, the Treasurer, Traylena Scott, provided some of this information to the organizations, and today I'm just going to reiterate some of the information that she provided. A cost is incurred when the funds have been expended to cover a cost. All CRF funding, I believe Kevin mentioned this earlier, must be spent by December 15th. The checks cut and mailed by December 15th, and any unspent funds must be returned to Cherokee Nation. As these funds were provided to you to provide services for our citizens, please make every effort to spend them to the best of your ability. But because Cherokee Nation has to report our spending to the Treasury of the United States, all CCO grant funding must be spent and reported back to Cherokee Nation by December 15th, so we can then provide our reports to the Treasury. I've provided a couple of slides with some information that is also available from a FAQ that was provided by the Treasury on August 10th of 2020. The Coronavirus Relief Fund guidance, it is available online, and you can Google it, Coronavirus Relief Fund FAQs August 10, 2020, and it'll bring up that document for you. Just some short information that's provided from that document. It provides some of the broad uses that the funding is available for. And I've been asked to reiterate 3 of those things. One is that the funds are available for payroll expenses for several classes of employees whose services are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Some examples of those types of employees are public safety employees, public health employees, healthcare, human services, and other similar employees. Payroll and benefit costs associated with those employees who could have been furloughed or otherwise laid off, but who are instead repurposed to perform previously unbudgeted functions substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency are also covered. educational support staff, or faculty responsible for developing online learning capabilities necessary to continue educational instruction in response to COVID-19 related school closures. One of the frequently asked questions was, may fund payments be used for COVID-19 public health emergency recovery planning? And the answer to that question is yes. Expenses associated with conducting a recovery planning project or operating a recovery coordination office would be eligible if the expenses were otherwise meet the criteria set forth in the guidance. Another frequently asked question is, may payments from the fund be used to assist individuals with enrolling in a government benefit program for those who have been laid off due to COVID-19 and thereby lost health insurance? And the answer is also yes. Expenses associated with conducting a recovery planning project or operating a recovery coordination office would be eligible if the expenses otherwise meet the other criteria set forth in the guidance. So, to Cco Sub-Recipients. The U.S. Department of Treasury has made it clear that Cherokee Nation must monitor all sub-recipients of the CRF funding to ensure all expenditures meet the statutory eligibility requirements. That means that your organization's use of CCO grant funds must comply with all statutory eligibility requirements. And you will be submitting your receipts and documentation and reports to us so that we can ensure that that has indeed happened, so that we then don't have to give that money back to the U.S. Department of Treasury. Per the CARES Act, CRF expenditures are subject to audit by the U.S. Department of Treasury's Inspector General. I say this to reiterate that indeed it is highly likely that as the recipient of as much funding as Cherokee Nation was, that we will indeed be audited by the Office of the Inspector General. That means that they will come to the tribe and they will view our documentation and our files to make sure that we did what we were responsible for. And one of those responsibilities is monitoring our subrecipients. And as subrecipients of over $50,000 to those organizations who received more than $50,000, that will also potentially apply to you. If they pull documentation from us that requires additional information from you, then we would then also reach out to you to receive that information to help clear up any issues that the OIG may have. If a cost is deemed ineligible, the Cherokee Nation will be required to return or repay those funds to the Treasury. So again, it's very important to document. Documenting the costs are allowable is essential to managing compliance and minimizing the possibility that the costs are deemed unallowable. In the grant world, we have a saying that if it wasn't documented, it doesn't happen. That is very important here because it is necessary for you to provide all of your documentation to substantiate every penny that you spend of the CRF fund to assist our citizens. Federal dollars cannot, under any circumstances, be claimed twice for the same spending. So please, no double dipping. So the COVID-19 grant response, in order to receive funding, each CCO organization submitted a complete grant application to the Cherokee Nation CCO departments. If approved, you will be sent notice of the award along with the Cherokee Nation Sub-Recipient Agreement to complete. So this agreement is, I believe we narrowed it down to 2 pages. It is super critical to Cherokee Nation fulfilling our roles as the prime grantee, subbing the awards to your organizations. At the end of my presentation, I will be giving you an email address where you can contact the grant department at Cherokee Nation, who will assist you with completing the document if indeed you need help to do so. When the funds are spent, you will send in a short Cherokee Nation sub-recipient report with your receipts and documentation attached. Again, don't forget, please keep your documentation and receipts handy. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. Other documents that I want to mention are a sub-recipient questionnaire. It is possible that after we fill out all of the paperwork that is necessary for us to complete regarding every application that is funded, we may have additional questions. And we'll use the contact information provided on the form that you filled out to send that questionnaire to you. Please fill it out and return it timely. There are going to be hundreds of grants that we have to provide this, that we have to do this documentation for, and timely receipt from every organization will ensure that we're able to do it in a timely manner and get all of our forms and paperwork completed before any auditors show up. It will be necessary if you have an annual audit in your organization, if your organization is large enough and receives other federal funding, you may receive an annual audit. If you do so, then Cherokee Nation also needs a copy of that audit. If you do not, don't be alarmed. It doesn't mean that you will not be funded or that there is an issue. We will just instead need your most recent financial statements. And if there are other forms that we find it necessary to have your organization fill out, please do not be alarmed. The Grant Services Department will assist you with completing any documentation or forms that you do not understand. So our contact email is crfgrants@cherokee.org. This email comes to all of my staff. It will be addressed within 24 hours, however, probably before the end of the day. Staff can assist with the questionnaires, your reports. If you have questions about reports that are due to Cherokee Nation, we can assist you with those as well. And in any forms that may be necessary for you to fill out. I appreciate your time in listening to me today. I know that the things that we have to do are not always enjoyable when it comes to grant funding. The department here at the tribe oversees the application and pre and post award of every application that Cherokee Nation submits for federal, state, and even local funding. So, so we're busy, but this is a priority. These funds are a priority for us because they allow you to provide services to our citizens during a critical time. So again, thank you for your time in listening to me today. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact us at crfgrants@cherokee.org. Thank you and have a great conference.
Thank you, Tanya. Valuable information there for all of the organizations. And again, she had some really pertinent information to share. So I know her email, contact information, and I know that they would love to hear from you if you have any questions, concerns. So once again, thank you, Tanya. A big round of applause, virtual applause for you, Tanya. Thank you so much for your participation this morning. As we close out, conference participants, we wanted to finish up by 10 a.m. and just a couple of reminders before you log out and take a small break, grab something to eat or drink, and remind you that the sessions will begin at 10:30 a.m. Sessions will begin at 10:30 a.m. If you have any issues on any part of the day, go to the Contact Us section on the app or on your website. There is technical support readily available. Also, the evaluations are very, very important that you fill the evaluations out and submit. You must watch at least 4 sessions and complete the 4 surveys evaluations in order to receive conference swag. We all want CCO swag, and that includes a variety of cool stuff. So evaluations equal conference swag. So get those evaluations turned in and submitted. They're very important to any conference that as they go forward, as they plan 2021, 2022, your evaluation will have a hand in future planning of this outstanding event. So also the conference banquet virtual banquet will begin at 6 p.m. sharp, 6 p.m. sharp this evening. This is a one-day virtual conference, so the conference sessions will end at 4 p.m. and the conference banquet, virtual banquet, will begin at 6 p.m. Evaluations, get your conference swag, take a little break. 10:30 a.m. today, 10:30 a.m. we begin our conference with panelists and outstanding speakers throughout the day, throughout the morning, and throughout the afternoon. Again, thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Kevin. To Principal Chief Hoskin Jr., to Deputy Chief Warner, on behalf of myself and the Conference Planning Committee, thank you for attending our opening session. With that, wadon. Have a good day. Osta. Wadon.